Good day everyone, I'm Michelle May S. De La Torre, the first reporter of Chapter 6, Trade Protectionism. So when we say protectionism, governmental restrictions in support to influence international trade competitiveness. Protectionism, ito yung mga policies para ma-implement ang goal at ma-improve ang economic within domestics, but also can be implemented for safety and quality concerns. Next is the role of stakeholders. Proposals on trade regulations often spark fierce debate among people and groups that believe they will be affected, that's so-called stakeholders. So, sa role of stakeholders, ang maapektuhan talaga nito ay yung mga workers, owners, and the suppliers. Then, the role of consumers. In contrast, consumers who are also stakeholders typically buy the best product they can find for the price, often without knowing or caring about its origin. They often don't realize how much retail prices rise in aggregate because of import restrictions. So, the role of consumers, tayong mga bumibili sa market, tinitignan talaga natin yung best product na worth sa price. For example, bumili tayo ng isang bagay, yung isang bagay na mamahalin. So, tinitignan natin yung mamahalin na bagay if yung quality ba ng isang bagay na yon ay worth ba sa price niya. So, in economic rationales for governmental intervention, we have fighting unemployment. Fighting unemployment, there's probably no more effective pressure group than the unemployed. No other group has more time and incentive to protest publicly and contact government representatives. So moreover, they often need to spend their unemployment benefits to survive short-term, kay nag-aasa pa sila na pabalikon sila sa ilang past or old na trabaho. Next is the prospect of retaliation. One difficulty with restricting imports to create jobs is that other countries whose production may typically drop as a result normally retaliate with their own restrictions. So, ang prospect retaliation, large trading countries are more important in the retaliation process. Analyzing trade-offs. In deciding whether to restrict imports to create jobs, governments must face the difficult task of comparing the cost of limiting imports with the cost of unemployment from fair trade. So, yung example na mga imports is yung mga like China na nagpapadala sila ng products or exchanging of products. Alam naman natin na ang China is isa sa mga countries na malalaki or may pera. Kaya nababaliwala yung mismong product ng Filipino dahil kadahilanan na mas ginugusto natin na bumili na lang sa product na ibang bansa. Next is protecting infant industries. First, infant industries argument holds that a government should shield an emerging industry from foreign competition by guarantee it a large share of the domestic market until it can compete on its own. Second, underlying assumptions, the infant industry argument presumes that the initial operating cost for an industry in a given country may be so high as to make its output non-competitive in world markets. Risk in designating industries. Although it's reasonable to expect production costs to decrease over time, they may never fall enough to create intentionally competitive products. The risk possess two problems. So the two problems is determining probability of success. First, governments must identify those industries that have high probability of success. Next is who should bear the cost. Second, even if policymakers can determine those infant industries likely to succeed, it does not necessarily follow that those companies therein should receive government assistance. Next is developing an industrial base. Surplus workers. Disguised unemployment is high in many developing countries, rural areas. People are effectively contributing life, if anything, to the agricultural output. Investment inflows. Import restrictions applies to our industrialization also may increase the FDI, and which provides capital, technology, and jobs. Diversification exports. Prices of many primary products such as oil and coffee fluctuate markedly. Price variation due to uncontrollable factors such as weather affecting supply or business cycles abroad affecting demand can wreak havoc on economics that depend on the export of primary product. This is especially true for many developing countries that must rely on only one or few commodities. For example, is yung gasoline. Tumaas yung gasoline or yung mantika dito sa Philippines just because yung away ng Russia at yung isang countries, nakalimutan ko kung anong countries yon. Pero dahil dun sa kanila ang supplies, syempre maaapektuhan yung mga countries kung saan sila nag-exchange ng products. Next is growth in manufactured goods. The quantity of imports that a given quantity of a country's exports can buy, say, how many bananas country A must sell to country B to purchase one refrigerator from country B is referred to as terms of trade. Import substitution and export-led development. Traditionally, developing countries promoted industrialization by restricting imports in order to boost local production and consumption of products they would otherwise export. Yun, sabi ko nga sa ibang bansa, yung mga products nila ay pinapadala nila sa Philippines para mag-boost ang kanilang mga business, while yung local products naman natin or yung mismong products natin ay bumababa. At mas nagiging recommendation nila yung sa ibang bansa at yung parang yung product natin yung mismong product natin ay kino-compare na nila sa other countries. Next is nation building. There may be a strong relationships between industrialization and aspects of the nation building process. Industrialization helps countries build infrastructure, advance rural development, and boost workforce skills. As employees, mas nagiging komportable tayo if maganda yung ambience at meron talaga tayong place na pag-aayusan or pagtatrabahuan ng isang empleyado.
Economic relationship with other countries. Balance of trade adjustments. A trade deficit creates problems for a nation with low foreign exchange reserves. The funds that help finance the purchase of priority foreign good and maintain the trustworthiness of a currency. So, balance of trade adjustments, in other terms, is the difference between the value of countries' imports for a given period For example, countries export, countries import. Example, suppose the USA imported 1.8 trillion in 2016 but exported 1.2 trillion to other countries, then the USA had a trade balance of 600 billion trade deficit. So, ang USA mag-import dapat siya sa 1.8 trillion tung 2016. Pero ang export lang nila is 1.2 trillion. That's why ang trade balance nila is mayroon sila nabilin nga 600 billion trade deficit. Causes balance of trade to increase. Ang mga causes nga ang balance of trade adjustments nag-increase kay first is export of competitiveness, exchange rates, consumer demand, trade policies, and economic growth. Comparable access or fairness. Companies and industries often use the comparable access argument, which holds that they are entitled to the same access to foreign markets as foreign industries and companies have to theirs. So, comparable access of fairness. Comparable access refers to an idea or purpose which promotes or emphasizes the equitable right that a country firms has access or entrance in the foreign market. So nga kailangan gid fair siya para everyone works together, solve problems easily, cares for one another, feel safe and fair get along. Restrictions as a bargaining tool. The threat or imposition of import restriction may be retaliatory measures for persuading other countries to lower their import barriers. The danger is that each country then escalates its restrictions, creating in effect a trade war that has negative impact on all their economies. Next, price control objectives. Countries sometimes withhold goods from international markets in an effort to raise price abroad. This is most feasible when a few countries hold near monopoly control of certain resources and can limit supply, so consumers must pay a higher price. So, price control objectives are restrictions imposed by governments to ensure that goods and services remain affordable. They are also used to create a fair market that is accessible by all. The point of price control is to help curb inflation and to create balance in the market. So, ang price control objectives, dire gina-control nila ang presyo sang kung may mag-abot man nga goods sa isa ka bansa. Dumping. Companies sometimes export below cost or below their home country price, a practice called dumping. Most countries restrict imports of dumped products, but enforcement usually occurs only if the imported product disrupts domestic production. So, ang dumping, in other term, dumping when a country or company export a product at a price that is lower in the foreign importing market than the price in the exporter domestic market. Next is optimum tariff theory. States that a foreign producer will lower its prices if the importing country places a tax on its products. If this occurs, benefits shift to the importing countries because the producer lowers its profits on the export sales. So, optimum tariff theory, a term used to describe that will raise national welfare to the greatest extent for a large company. So, ang optimum tariff theory, ang number one nga maka-benefits sini is ang tanan nga countries, ang industries, and trading partners. Next. Non-economic rationalists for government intervention. So, may ara siya ka-apat nga major of non-economic rationalists. First is maintaining essential industries. Second, promoting acceptable practices abroad. Third, maintaining or extending spheres of influence. And fourth, preserving national culture. So, maintaining essential industries, governments apply trade restriction to protect essential domestic industries during peacetime so the country is not dependent on foreign supplies during war. So, sa maintaining essential industries, ang gobyerno dira, do protektahan nilang nga dapat may peace ang bawat country. Kay in terms nga, kung ang Philippines nag-export sang and nag-import sa product sa gawas. So, if ever nga may war nga matabo, hindi lang Philippines na maapektuhan, kundi may ara po diba nga lugar nga magkampi-kampi man pod. That's why the country is not independent on foreign supplies during war. Promoting acceptable practices abroad. So governments use national defense arguments to prevent the export, even to friendly countries, of strategic goods that might fall into the hands of potential enemies. So sa promoting acceptable practices abroad, sorry sa kanding. So promoting acceptable practices abroad, governments use national defense. So it means kung sa abroad, ang gobyerno dito ginadepensahan nila nga ma-prevent ang pag-export sa ilang nga bansa, even though friendly countries para nila, kay ang ilabi nga ginaim is hindi sila mahulog sa hands ng potential enemies ang ilang kakompetensya. Then, maintaining or extending spheres of influence. Governments also use trade to support their spheres of influence, going aid and credits too, and encouraging imports from countries that join a political alliance or vote preferred way within international bodies. Next, persevering national culture. Countries are held together partly through a unifying sense of identity that sets their citizens apart from those in other nations. To sustain this collective identity, they prohibit exports of art and historical hits that they deem to be part of their national heritage. So, persevering national culture. The best way to preserve our cultural heritage is share with others. Cultural heritage and natural history of a nation has a very high value and is unique, and it's identity that can be introduced to the world. So, dapat i-preserve to po ang aton nga culture, especially ang aton nga tradition, ang aton nga national heritage. Then, instruments of trade control. So, governments use many rationalists and seek a range of outcomes when they try to influence export or imports. Tapos, may two types that differ their effects. Those that indirectly affect the amount traded by directly influencing export or import prices, and these that directly limit the art of good that can be traded.